rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line.
65 horsepower trap. It might pop wide open, Rats.
It's in there! Yes, sir, Rats. Nice going, baby. Yes, sir, Rats. High snap. It's no good. The Chargers. Here comes the rush. He sidesteps. Can he throw? He can't. The ball flipped forward as loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper is recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most seedy.
Hello and happy Wednesday and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. Captain, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
He's asleep.
I thought he fell asleep. That old man sleep.
Sir.
That old man nap.
Don't make me do what I talked about in pregame to prove that I was here. So shut the flack up. All I'm going to say.
And the rivalry continues. All right, so moving on to the rest of the show, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. It is clearly a divisional game coming up, as you can clearly tell by the post intro tension. And my name is Richie Riche. I am from the MHRT Network. Over to my right on screen is Captain Jack of the Captain Jack Rackham YouTube channel. Directly below, the Carlton. There we go. At least we moved on from Will and Grace. And then we go ahead and we got Alex from Arrowhead Addict, who's directly below me. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. We have football's finally here. Got a little taste, college last week. And as they say, we had the bowl. Now we want the young calf with NFL starting. So yeah, I'm hyped.
Excellent. And Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. It's Raiders week.
Oh, man. Hey.
All hate. It's all hate this week.
Wow. Hate. All right. We are really getting into this. I had a funny feeling that this might be how things are about to go, but it is what it is. So,
is that all you got? That's freaking weak, man.
Hey, I don't see you with any audio cue ups right now.
I don't need to.
He's got his own. It's all produced in-house.
Alex,
I don't need
do not tempt.
Extra fancy schmancy audio cue-ups.
Yeah, we don't need any butt aerobics for coming from you. So let's just move on.
Ace Ventura was a few years ago now, and let's keep it that way. But so we're gonna have an awesome show for you guys today. We've got some great guests have teed up to introduce a new segment on the show. It's going to be called the 3-point stance, and that segment's going to include fans, super fans, and podcasters from other teams coming into the show to give us the 3 things that their team needs to do to beat one of ours. Just kind of depends on who's playing who and all those good things. It's going to be really, really interesting, and I love having other NFL teams jump in to the show and start talking football.
All right.
Uh-oh, Coach.
What happened?
You didn't see that?
On,
huh?
You didn't see Clifford's comment? We're going to have to pull that one up again. I think, yeah.
Raiders colors. Yeah, right. Raiders colors. Listen, I don't have an orange jumpsuit on, so I don't have Raiders colors on. So let's just be honest here. Black and white stripes, or orange jumpsuit, then that's not Raiders colors. So let's just move on past that. It's a Chargers shirt. See that? It's a Chargers shirt. Chargers hat, Chargers shirt. So I'm getting down.
Again. There you
go. Yeah.
Yeah, a little itchy, right?
Yeah. Like that, and Cap looks like Charlie Sheen in 2.5 Men right now. So
the old version.
Holy
the 80-year-old version. The 80-year-old version of Charlie Sheen.
Are we already talking about drinking some? Was it tiger blood?
Tiger blood, yeah.
Winning.
Yeah, tiger's blood. You
Winning.
lame clown.
Winning.
I knew he'd have it.
There we go. So everyone who's joining us tonight, we'd like to thank you for coming into the podcast. We have a lot of the usual suspects, if you will. I'm hoping that we're going to also start seeing some of our opponents jump in here and start talking trash too, because that'd be awesome. I love having other NFL teams kind of come and interact with us as well, particularly on the opponent side. Yes, I am wearing black again, Tito. Good observation. But if you note, the logo is in fact the podcast. So let's not get things crossed.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
Are we? Oh, okay.
That's
I'm
a lie.
gonna
Commitment
say
to
it because
excellence.
You friggin' just teed me up. I'm gonna look at the trophies in my Super Bowl trophy case, and I'll allow you to look at. Oh, never mind.
That's always your little lame argument. Yeah. You got a trophy in 1955, and we don't have any. Okay, fine.
You don't
All
have
right,
no
whatever.
trophy in 1955. You started in 1960.
You didn't hear what I said. I said you want to reference a trophy you had in 1955, and we don't have any. That's the words I said. That's what I said.
He said
You
what
don't
he
even
said.
know when your team started. That says it all.
I wasn't born, so sir, anything predating my birth, I don't keep track of. I'm sorry, I'm not a historian. I don't get paid to be a historian in life. I'm sorry. Anything past 1979, before 1979, I don't know about it. Let's just put that on the card on the table right
You
now.
were born in 79.
I was born in 79, sir.
I want to see an ID. I think you're full of crap.
You think I'm older than that or younger than that?
Older than that.
I'm older than I. Oh wow, okay. I'm older than that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sir, I'm 43 years old. Always have, always will be. May 30th, 1979. For those listening, that's my birthday. Always has, always will be.
For the May 30, 1979. And it's coach defense. Okay, because I'll get your name one of these days. We're gonna have all the Raider fans that you think we're running around in orange jumpsuits. Friggin' spam your ass and take all your credit cards away. There you go.
So I think what's going to start happening now is now people know your birthday, and now you have a whole group of Raiders fans that now know exactly who you are.
What's the
So
last
you're gonna get like the Raiders e-cards that are gonna get sent to you saying happy birthday.
Right. Right.
I think Tito was asking for the last 4 of your social. You got that? Or
No, I'm not giving that out. Sorry. Not my full name, not my social, none of that. My employee ID number, none of that, sir. None of that. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
I mean, it's on my Twitter, so it's not like it's not public knowledge. My birthday is on my Twitter account, so it's not like it's a secret. So I'm not hiding anything.
Awesome. So before we get into everything, do we want to let's start talking about the quick news before we jump right into the meat and potatoes of it all, which is, the fact we actually have real football coming up in, a few short days now. With regards to all of that, the Denver Broncos inked a massive deal for Russell Wilson. I figured we would be remiss to not discuss that. I have to imagine.
How dare they do that? They just taint their whole roster by paying so much money to one person.
The audacity of paying Russell Wilson what he's worth.
Absurdity.
The nerve of you to pay Russell Wilson what he's worth. And totally and completely ruin your ability to be competitive on your roster because you're paying your quarterback top dollar.
I do think that that's an issue.
Okay,
I do think that's an issue.
As long as you keep the same energy, we're good.
I do. I am I saying that he is not a top tier quarterback until proven otherwise in the league? No, I'm not saying that either. However, I am consistent when it comes to those sorts of comments, which is, when you pay a quarterback that percentage of your cap, my comments were the same when I was talking about KC and being able to build a team around them. Unless they can be the reason and overcome the remaining deficiencies that they leave on the roster, it almost always comes back as a negative to the team. It just does. And the only exception to that is if that quarterback is a magnet for other players and you're able to get other players to come to your team at a team-friendly discount, or to have it so that different contracts can all kind of dovetail together in varying years to allow for, say, 3 or 4 top tier guys to kind of volley in terms of the levels of pay and end up fitting like a top tier roster together.
Or you can have the Rams bookkeepers, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, mob bosses do wonders, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They know how to cook the books.
Hey, you want us to go frickin' talk to this guy for you there, Charlie? We could do that for you.
Paulie, I'm saying Paulie. Do you want me to talk to this guy or what?
Hey, forget about it. I got a guy and it fell off the effing truck, man.
No, all they do is the Rams owner rolls up in a 6-body caddy.
Yeah.
And pops the trunk in front of Goodell and says that's a 6-body trunk. And then there's just say no more, and then they drive away, and everything's fine again with their cap space.
Hey, yeah,
It's,
you know what we'll
it's really remarkable.
I caught myself.
Yeah, it's really remarkable in terms of what the Rams can do with their cap space. Although they do bring in these guys on 1-year deals, pay them a top salary because they brought a top tier guy in, and then they're out the door, and they seem to cycle through. Like what they did with Von Miller. They traded
picks for like a year or two.
Yeah. They traded it for 1 year.
F them picks is what they say.
Well, yeah, they're like, fine, trade the picks. Let's get a Super Bowl.
Yeah, why not? I trade my picks for a Super Bowl. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll trade 2 and 3, which is what they traded, a second and a third.
Yeah.
In the same draft, same draft year to get a Super Bowl that same year. Why not? It worked.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, so good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, right.
What do you want to say?
I mean, there's nothing to say. I mean, what can you argue? It'd be right. They're the champs until approved otherwise.
Yeah, it worked.
Right. Kudos.
There you go. Right. So, I mean, like I said, I'm consistent. Do I think that Russell Wilson deserves that type of a paycheck? Yes. I think he is proven as a top-tier quarterback in the league until proven otherwise. We will find out this year if he can continue back up on an upwards trajectory from his time with the Seahawks. And we will see if he better fits into a roster that I think that will equally or perhaps even better fit his skill sets. I do think that we have certain players on our team that do better fit his skill sets than what he had in Seattle. And I'm not saying that Seattle doesn't have good pieces on their team. What I am saying is that I think that when you look at the totality of what the Broncos have on offense, I think it better suits Russell Wilson and what he has and what he likes to do and how he likes to do it. So the Broncos are certainly not a shoo-in to make the playoffs, and they're certainly not a shoo-in to make it all the way deep into the playoffs or to the Super Bowl. But I do think that Russell Wilson certainly puts them in a better position to get to either one of those places. And, he really ought to be paid the way he should. Well, he's not getting paid $50 million. He's getting paid $49. Although when you're talking a difference of $1 million, that's like, oh boy,
$1 million.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Yeah. I think Walt found that in the back seat of one of his cars once, right?
You're right.
Well, we're gonna get a GoFundMe, and we're gonna ante up, and we're gonna ante up for that $1 million that he's like light in the books for.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
The real crazy one's going to be seeing what Herbert gets paid here the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, the market's constantly going up, and I think we're going to see what Lamar gets paid before any of that. So Lamar is really going to be the bar for Burrow and Herbert. So we just depends on what Lamar gets paid, and I think it comes down to guaranteed money for him. I don't think it's about the annual salary; it's about the guaranteed money he wants. I think that's the only holdup, in my opinion, for that situation. But yeah,
well, it's kind of both.
Well, I mean,
it's kind of both, right?
I go harken back to the Deshaun Watson deal. I think that the sticking point for Kyler Murray was guaranteed money. I think the sticking point for Lamar is guaranteed money. I think they want a certain level amount of guarantees in their contract before they sign the deal, because you're going to hover around the $45 to $50 million range no matter who you are.
Yeah, but I also think Lamar wants more than the guy that he's done more than in the league,
True.
And someone who's a division opponent that a team sold the farm to bring in. I think that kind of plays a component, but I haven't really seen any details other than him beefing on Twitter about what they did and didn't offer him.
Right. Did y'all see that meme about the guy and the girl laying in the bed? And he said, I bet you dreaming about another girl. He was like, man, damn it, won't they just pay Lamar already? Yeah, that was hilarious.
No, I do agree with you. I think Wilson intentionally brought himself a little bit lower than he could have otherwise attempted to push for, given the current market state and where things are looking at in the future. It still doesn't change my comments, though, because I am consistent when it comes to this sort of thing. I think it's very,
he got 49 when he really, could have pushed for 50.
Yeah.
No, I actually think it could have been more like a 52, 51, somewhere in that range there, or something along those lines, or like an average of 52 over the course of the deal there. Just the problem is that when you start getting into these big numbers, and frankly, I think Lamar is going to be pushing up into that range. I think that you're going to have, some of these other quarterbacks that are all coming due. Herbert's going to be one of them.
Yeah, he is.
And you're talking massive percentages, even with the increased cap. And then the question is, can you afford to keep that star DN that you would like to keep on the defensive side of the ball? Can you then afford to keep the star wide receiver or have a solid number two? Or are you going to have to then rely on your drafting in order to bring in that guy to backfill? I think you're putting yourself in a tough spot. And then also the offensive line. A reasonable left tackle is every bit $17 million, $18 million. Yeah. And in today's NFL, a solid left tackle is not enough for you to really adequately compete. You have to have both left and right tackles solidified in order to properly compete in today's NFL.
Well, tell all our teams that, because nobody has Pro Bowl level right tackles in this division. I tell you that much.
I don't think anyone has a starting left tackle on most other teams on our roster right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
I'm saying not even Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I think we all got solid left tackles, but our right tackles are kind of,
Okay. Well, I was going to say, and again, I am saying this objectively.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
No. First off, F you. Listen to me before I say this, okay? I honestly think that Colton Miller is a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle that hasn't been given the accolades as of yet, and you will see that this year.
He's the best one you got, so I mean,
not bad.
Yeah, I mean, if he blocks and everybody else can't, then I guess you kind of have to give him credit, right?
Fine.
So really, the Russell Wilson contract is pretty much the only major news that came out in the last little bit. Now, I would like to say that and point out that that's the second pretty big piece of news that has been in the works for a long while that did not leak. There was nothing that came out in any media. There was some initial rumblings to say, oh, we think that Russell Wilson might be working on a new deal, that sort of thing. But there was nothing that came out definitively with any kind of leaked rough numbers or anything like that. So I think that's something that needs to be called out.
Yeah, it was. You kind of say that. I guess there wasn't ever any mainstream news of they're in talks of an extension or anything like that.
That came out today. That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that came out today.
Dang, he just called it quits. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
No, that's right. So if anyone has the stream on in the background, we should probably turn that off because it'll help eliminate an echo. Any one of the four of us. But moving on to the upcoming game. Alex, we pulled in
Here we go.
A cards guy who is well known within that community. And he broke down what he thinks the Cardinals are going to have to do in order to try to beat the Chiefs. And in full disclosure, before I throw into the video and we kick off our first 3-point stance video here, is I actually think this game is going to be much closer than a lot of Chiefs fans think. And without further ado, let's hear what the Cardinals have to say in terms of what they need to do to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1 of the NFL.
I'm Jess Root from Phoenix, Arizona, I run Cards Wire from the USA Today NFL Wire and host of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona's week 1 matchup against the Chiefs is going to be a good one. Why the Cardinals can win? If you look at the offensive weapons that they've got, even without DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks, you've got Kyler Murray, who's a year removed. He's improved every single year. Facing a Chiefs defense that's lost 2 of their starting defensive backs in Charvarius Ward and Tyrann Mathieu. The Cardinals have talent and they have continuity on offense. AJ Green should have a big game. James Conner, everyone's healthy on offense, and then and they do have questions in the secondary. However, they have Isaiah Simmons who can match up to defend Travis Kelce, and they have Marcus Golden on the edge, along with J.J. Watt and Zach Allen on the interior to give pressure. The Cardinals' defense doesn't have to be good to be able to win games. They just need to be not bad. And so between the Cardinals having the offensive weaponry, they've started the season. Kind of, you look at like last year's. They rested guys, they kept things under wraps, and then they blew out the Tennessee Titans. I don't expect the same type of thing, but I believe that they will be well prepared for a Chiefs team that also traditionally starts very well, knowing Patrick Mahomes' 4-0 record in the season openers. But I think that the Cardinals have the ability to put points on the board, to pressure Patrick Mahomes to potentially make a mistake 1 or 2 times at 2 points that are in the game. And if that happens, it'll come down to the wire. And I think it's going to come down to whoever's got the ball last, or whoever doesn't turn the ball over will be the victor of that game. The Cardinals receivers, they're going to have a trio of receivers, plus Zach Ertz, plus James Conner, AJ Green, Rondale Moore, Hollywood Brown, will be able to test a Chiefs secondary that is remade, having lost Charvarius Ward and Tyrann Mathieu. So between the adjustments that they're going to have to make on their defense, the Cardinals will be able to put the pressure on that secondary, potentially putting the points on the board, and then kind of turning the ball over to the offense. I think this is going to end up being a shootout.
So, Alex, how did that go?
I commend his opinions and support for his squad, but he anytime you're major, noting the players, you mentioned AJ Green, who, like my man Hefe said, is 45. I mean, come on. And I do think that it's going to be somewhat of a shootout. We talked pretty early on when I got onto the show about the strength, the schedules when they came out, and that the Chiefs got a pretty crappy schedule in terms of difficulty. And I think, Cards having the Cards week 1 when they're known to start pretty hot, but then fizzle out, is definitely a tougher matchup than, say, playing them in week 12. But I just don't see Arizona keeping up with them the whole time. I think that it's going to be an offensive shootout to some degree, but I imagine around the 3rd, start of the 4th, you're going to see sort of KC kind of take the initiative. And, I think it's going to be a 1-score, 10-point win, but I mean, I think that the Chiefs come out on top more so because of just Arizona's defense. They have a pretty bad secondary. I mean, they have nice safeties. Budda Baker's probably one of the best safeties in the league. Jalen Thompson's a pretty serviceable safety. Yeah. But, at corner, not a lot there. Byron Murphy is respectable, but
they had to go out and get Trayvon.
They got Mullen, who cap knows. I mean, Raiders have won him.
Yeah.
And you got Marco Wilson, who gets significant playing time and probably wouldn't on a lot of other rosters. So I think when you couple that with the fact that they lost Chandler Jones and kind of diminished their pass rush without really recouping it, I just don't see J.J. Watt and Marcus Golden being the keys for the secondary to, kind of hold up their coverage. So I think you're going to see, a lot, especially with kind of a revamped passing attack, and you got to kind of scrap the blueprint of how you played KC the last 2-3 years. I think that's going to be sort of a recipe for disaster once we get into the later part of the game. I mean, I think the Cardinals have a very good offense. It would especially be better if D-Hop was there, and you didn't have to mention, A.J. Green. You didn't even talk about Marquise Brown. I would have thought that.
No Hollywood talk? Yeah, that was
bad. And I expect them to move the ball, and I expect Arizona to put on, have some good offensive drives and plays themselves. But I just think kind of with the fact that you don't have their key playmaker, so to speak, or their pretty much kind of clutch playmaker. I mean, I think we've seen at least 2-3 end of game highlights of Kyler Murray throwing a Hail Mary to D-Hop. When you take out that aspect of their, highest paid receiver with the fact that it's kind of, relying on A.J. Green and Zach Ertz and James Conner as the guys that have been there, and kind of having the unknown of Marquise Brown, I think that their offense is kind of in a similar situation as how he was trying to say, KC's in terms of sort of, theirs is not as permanent as Kansas City is, but they're going into this game without their main breadwinner in the passing game. And you're going to have to see how Kyler Murray does it. I kind of anticipate that Arizona is going to run a lot more than they normally would, whether that be with Kyler or or with James Conner. But, I just don't see the defense of Arizona being able to hold up the whole game. I do think that they're a respectable team. I think it's going to be an entertaining game and pretty high scoring, kind of similar to like the Rams Chiefs from a couple years ago, where it was just like everyone was scoring touchdowns. Not to that degree, but I think I just read this chat. Sorry, I just glanced over at Chris Gang's message and I couldn't not laugh at that. But I think KC comes out like 35-28, somewhere in that range.
Well, I mean, I keep on hearing and seeing all the chats here is that you're all predicting that the Cardinals are going to start strong but finish weak over the course of the season. It sounds an awful lot like, that 14-year-old kid on prom night.
Wow.
However, with that in mind, I figured this is a rather fitting comment with regards to pulling one out.
Well, that's what she said.
I just thought that was too good of a lead in to miss on. But I actually think that when you're truly looking at the way that the Cardinals have started the last 2 seasons at least, they have come on looking like a very dangerous football team in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I do question and wonder, there seems to be a little bit more continuity on the Cardinals than there is on the Chiefs, generally speaking. Yes, your quarterback's there, and yes, you have the same head coach, but your offense was always predicated around 2 to 3 people, and even your second and third option are no longer on the team. So you brought in a whole bunch of new kind of rotational guys, and you're still waiting to see who fits. I'm not saying you're never going to find out which one of them fits, but I'm saying this is the first game.
I don't think that they plan on any one of them fitting as the guy. I mean, Mahomes even said today in an interview, I apologize to all you fantasy managers, but we're not going to have just one guy. So I think
one guy and fitting. It sounds like a train's going to be pulled on Cardinals, man.
Yeah.
So I just my big thing has been the last 2 seasons, and the reason why I said what I said before the first video they're kicked off with the Cardinals is they've looked really strong over the course of the last few seasons. The Chiefs have typically also looked strong, but that's with
one of them won the Super Bowl in their division, title game. The other one, I don't think made the playoffs. So
but your offense has also been predicated around having, a complement of players that are more familiar. There's been less turnover than there has been this last offseason, and there's been rumors now whether or not we're going to see it, although we did see it in preseason, where there was certainly more running of the football, and Mahomes played more in the preseason than he typically would as a result of that. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be very interesting, in my opinion, and I do still stand by my previous comment. I don't think the Chiefs are going to look awful by any means, but I do think that the Cardinals are going to potentially surprise many, or at the very least make this a much, much closer game than most people are thinking it's going to be.
Fair enough.
Coach, what about you?
It's a tough call. I mean, I'm very interested in kind of dialed into the idea of what the Chiefs offense is going to look like post Tyreek Hill. Will Andy finally get back to, well, I won't say get back to, because he's never really been a proponent of running the ball, but will he add more elements to the run game in his offense to kind of figure things out? I think I mentioned something about this on my podcast, is that I think they might kind of lean towards that and be kind of vanilla, so they kind of figure out what they have chemistry-wise with their new receivers, and they'll kind of, lend to the idea they may air it out more as the season goes on. But it's just a matter of it's a trial by fire thing. I guess you can say that it might come to fruition when they come to the Chiefs offense. It might be safe and methodical early on, and then once we discover what we have as an advantage, who's that guy? Maybe McCole Harbin is that over the top guy, that game breaker that they brought him in to be. Is Valdez-Scantling going to show what he could have been in Green Bay? Something like that. Waiting for those guys to kind of ascend, in a sense, so that happens. I think they're gonna be kind of basic, kind of vanilla. You're gonna see a lot more checkdowns, a lot more draws, a lot more screens. Safe plays, safe but effective plays to keep the offense flowing, get some rhythm, and then allow them to really understand what they have from an offense perspective, and as they bring everybody together as starters. Because although Mahomes did play a lot during the preseason, it wasn't a full gamut of offensive linemen and receivers and running backs all on the field together. So this will be the first time. So it'll be interesting to see. So I'm waiting for it, but I do think the Chiefs will win. I think my guy DZ said the same thing I'm thinking. The Cardinals are not going to do us any favors in this division by beating the Chiefs. I don't think that's going to happen. So I fully believe the Chiefs will win that game.
I'm hopeful. I'm not holding my breath either, but I am hopeful.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, hold your breath, it might turn blue.
Yeah, I know. I'm not holding my breath, but
next week.
I'm hopeful. But because I do kind of think that there's a bit of an issue that the Cardinals have, which is that they're just not able to keep the same tempo and energy as the season progresses. I for whatever reason
they can't. Yeah, they've shown the last, I think, every year under 2 or 3 seasons,
really. Yes, yeah.
It wasn't last year. They 6-0 or something, and everyone was like, "The Cardinals are here," and then just down. And
they run sprints. They don't run marathons.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And I just don't think they did any additions to help themselves going into this year. I feel like they lost more pieces than added more in terms of Arizona. So I kind of think it's a sort of a similar narrative to them of how, especially with Hopkins being gone for the first 6 games. How are they going to be able to be as successful as they've been starting the season out, or is it not going to be that way this year?
Yeah, the real question is, can Kyler do it without D-Hop? Because everybody's saying that he's a different person when DeAndre Hopkins is not on the field. This is a chance to prove it.
So
can he be effective? Yeah, can he be effective and be productive without DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup? That's the question.
Right. No, I think that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Captain, do you have anything to say on the Cardinals Chiefs game?
Yeah, I was going to say, first off, and even though he was overpaid, don't forget that they also lost Kirk at wide receiver. D-Hop's not there. So those were two of their main weapons that are going to be, need to be addressed. And, I think it'll be good for Murray to figure out how he's going to overcome those deficiencies. And I don't know. I'll be honest. I really didn't pay a lot of attention to the Cardinals in the preseason because I knew that when they came to town, that they were not going to have D-Hop there for our home opener, and we caught them early as well. And when you remove a vital cog out of that offense, it's very important for your wide receiver.
What did you say?
A
cog?
vital cog. A vital cog. Not something that you have been thinking about there, shipmate. That sounds like it. I'm just saying. But
and the gesture to go along with the comment made it funny. I just want to put that out
there. Anyway, I just think that it's going to be interesting to see. And honestly, I think that the Chiefs are going to have they're going to be a lot better at the start of this season than I think that the as far as the availability of their team and how they mesh, because their starters played in the preseason. Okay, I think that's very important. Whereas the Raiders and the Chargers held out their primary starters, and the Broncos and the Chiefs are going to be, I think, like a game ahead of everybody because they've at least built that rapport and gel by actually having their starters play. So that's one of the positive things about that.
Not to mention, I meant to bring this up, but I looked at the injury report for Arizona, and they have a lot of important pieces that have not practiced yet. Obviously, we're very early into the week, but you got J.J. Watt and Marcus Golden both not practicing at all. That's something to monitor because that drastically kind of changes the vibe as well if you don't have one of those guys. I'm sure they'll play. You get to that point of being in the league, I feel like you don't practice anyways and just kind of show up and play on Sunday. But
right.
The other thing that they could do with those guys, though, is that they're both veterans, and so as a result, they could be doing stuff kind of to the side, but not with the team, and then be counted as not practicing.
There's pumping.
And so they're just basically trying to mess with people to say, hey, you don't know if they're going to play or not, because you have very little you can do as a team to, withhold that type of information. The only thing you can do is to kind of pull that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't think any of them don't play, but it is something to kind of monitor, just given the status of where we're at in the week and kind of the fact that they didn't really participate in preseason games. So, it's kind of not a publicized injury or anything.
Right. No, 100%. 100%. So we have a divisional matchup. Dare I say a storied divisional matchup in the AFC West between we all know who it is. So we all know who it is. And really, if we're going to go ahead and have an AFC West roundtable, that's really why we're all here, is to have these types of discussions. Captain, I'm going to throw over to you first, since you kind of went last on that Cardinals-Chiefs game. Do you want to start with the Raiders game this week and, your thoughts in terms of what you think your Raiders need to do to win that one?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sure that coach is ready for the counterpunch. I'm gonna feed them all some points, and and that's fine. Because I look at this game again, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. The fact is that the Chargers and the Raiders did not play their starters in the preseason. I think that that's going to amp up a lot of the people. I know that Derek Carr last year against the Ravens in the opener was like so jacked up on hype that he overthrew a bunch of people, but it took him until like about the end of the half in the third quarter to actually calm the F down and start hitting the availability, okay? And I think that he needs to make sure he checks within himself. But that goes without saying. I think it's going to come down to this. We've already talked about the deficiencies that the entire division has at right tackle. We've already mentioned that. And everybody is saying that that is the key. Well, I will say this, okay? You scheme around deficiencies. And I will say that having Illuminor at right tackle in a system that he already knows with Josh McDaniels as his OC, and in Cheat Trick land, with Carmen Brasili as his offensive line coach, knowing the playbook, knowing the plays, is going to be not as bad as people think. Okay. Could we have upgraded right tackle? Yes, we can say that across the board for all the teams here. But having that knowledge of what's going on and knowing that the coach is going to scheme away from the deficiencies there, okay? And the coach might not think that there will be a deficiency, but we will obviously ultimately see. If there's issues, you're going to have the tight end and or the running back out of the backfield chip. I'd not freaking do that. Okay, so anybody that thinks that I just got rid of Coach because I didn't like him, please, and by the way, I have.
Were you trying to project?
Yeah, I did the Sheldon, thing, with the scanner.
Yeah.
I did the scanners thing.
Yeah.
But and by the way, I have thunderstorms as well. So if I check out, it's not me. Coach is coming back. Thank God. But I think that, again, you scheme around what is an implied deficiency. But knowing what McDaniels has done, and he's played the Chargers the last couple of years, his offense has, it's going to come down to quick hits of the offense, running attack. The Chargers last year were deficient in the football. And we will see if that's been addressed, okay? The Raiders are going to run on you, and they're going to run until you stop the run. And if you start sucking in to stop the run, there's going to be those the seam pass to Waller and or the button hook to Renfro, or a 9 pattern to Tay Adams, who might not have J.C. Jackson guarding against him. Yes, he's going to be double covered by whoever the cornerback is, and Derwin James will probably cheat over. We already know that's coming. But it's going to be, can you stop the offense and how well you stop the offense? Scheme, quick openers, knowing what has been successful for McDaniels in the past when they played the Chargers. I think the last 2 times that they played the Chargers, they've won. And that was with an offense that is not as good on paper than what the Raiders have right now. So that's the big thing right there, is obviously taking care of that. Now, on the flip side of that, the deficiencies are whether you're going to be able to handle the defensive ends that are coming at you. There's some guy on the Chargers, I forget his name, that previously played for the Raiders. And, he's coming back after a hiatus in Chicago. Thank you for taking Leatherwood, but he's coming back from Chicago. You got a kid on the other side that's not injured as of today. So you got probably for at least the one time of the year, you got these guys that are not injured by the name of Bosa and 50 Who. And they are a dynamic defensive end combo. Okay. And it's going to come down to pressure up the middle by the Chargers defense. And on the flip side, it's going to be pressure up the middle by the Raiders, because we have some very good defensive ends ourselves. Okay. Chandler Jones, that no longer plays for the Cardinals, is on the flip side of Max Crosby, who has now gotten to a point where maybe he might get more holding calls called against him now that prestige level has been earned and gained, because, again, he was mugged last year for all of these games. But you know how you have like the Jordan rules? Once you have a rapport and a status, you start getting calls. he who shall not be named other than 50 who didn't get it his first 2 years when he played for the Raiders. But once he became that all-pro, he started drawing those holding calls because the officials saw that he was being mugged and molested. And so Crosby's going to start getting those calls, I believe, this year, okay? Up the middle pressure against Carr, up the middle pressure against Herbert. And, of course, your ends are going to be doing their jobs, but you got to make sure that the quarterbacks can't step up and do their job. And then it's going to come down, obviously, you talk about, it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be, I don't want to say super high scoring, but I think, relatively high scoring. I think it's going to be close. And then it comes down to who's got the better special teams. And I'll take our boy Carlson against whoever the Chargers have. And they told me last night on Bolt Brothers, and I'm like, okay, I don't know who that is, but apparently I'll take Carlson, who is a Pro Bowl caliber kicker, and I will take AJ Cole, who is the dynamic punter in the long lines of successful punters that the Raiders have always had to flip the field. So I will take on the special teams. I'm going to take us in that battle. It's going to be a tight game. It's going to be close, but I think if all goes as planned, I like the Raiders coming out on top. I don't care if it's by 1, 3, 13, or whatever, but I'll take the Raiders in a win. I won't do a score, but I firmly believe that if the Raiders can play up to their potential in a home game in Los Angeles, we will win.
So, Coach, some interesting points there. Personally, from my perspective, I think there's actually some similarities in terms of some of the strengths and weaknesses, although I do think that the Chargers clearly win hands down in terms of the back end of their defense when compared to the Raiders from a talent perspective. Aside from that, what is your take on this game in terms of those sorts of points that you think the Chargers need to do in order to beat the Raiders?
Well, it starts with penalties. I think that the penalties we have to limit. I think that was our demise in a few games that were we had control of in the large space Cowboys game and a few other games, a couple of divisional games that we had that just were ruined by penalties. So that's my biggest sticking point with the Chargers.
Ooh.
That hadn't necessarily been put to bed from a changing roster or ascension of talent. So I think to keep penalties down, I think to keep that out of the game. You play a clean game, I think that the rest will take care of itself. But as far as the analytics are concerned, as far as the brass tacks of football, I think that people aren't really giving the just due to the weakness of the Raiders O-line and their interior D-line. I think their interior D-line is a weakness. I think their O-line outside of Colton Miller is a liability. I think our upgraded front can take a large advantage of that early and often. I think they can definitely limit the run early. And if you limit the run early, if our offense stays on schedule, we'll put the Raiders behind and they will be pressed into a one-dimensional game, which will lend into the hands of our elite secondary. So I think those are the biggest points I think that are in our favor. I mean, clearly we both all agree that roster top to bottom, we have a better roster. But you still got to go out and execute. No matter what you do in regards to how you look in your uniform or who you have on paper, you still got to go out and play the game. And it is a divisional game. And to be quite honest and frank, I think that everybody in that locker room on the Chargers side is locked into this game because anybody that was on the roster last year has a dirty taste in their mouth based upon what happened at the end of the season last year. Yes, the defense fell apart. Yes, we did make some questionable calls on fourth down and things of that nature might have cost us games against the Chiefs and the Cowboys and the Raiders, just to name a few. But it still is a sticking point, and it still sticks in the craw of anybody that was in the organization in the last season because they really want to be vindicated from their loss because we should have been in the playoffs. The Raiders shouldn't have. That's how they feel. So, and that's not my words; they're theirs. So I think that's the biggest thing. The fact that they're focused on beating this team because of what happened last year. I think they marked this game on the calendar when it came out that this is going to be a game that's going to be coming out party for this team and what we can look forward to going forward. But from a schematic standpoint, offensively, I think we should run the ball early to set up the pass. Like I said, I think especially in interior, I like our guards, not center, versus their interior line. Lindsey, Zion Johnson, and my father against the interior O-line. I respect the ends. I respect Max Crosby. I respect Chandler Jones, but I do give them the credit of being better pass rushers than run defenders. So if we can get them moved on the edge and we can move bodies in the interior, get Austin Eckler going, whatever they're going to do with Sonny Michel, how he's going to play in, Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller, which all should be healthy for this game. So we got a plethora of running backs. So we can just run the ball 2 days in if we feel like it, if we have an advantage there. And, we all can look at the tape and see that Justin Herbert can sling it. And all our receivers are healthy. So I really think that it's really our game to have, and I don't really think it'd be close if we execute and we don't beat ourselves. So I think we're our own worst enemy. I don't think the Raiders are, in all honesty. So it just really boils down to whether or not we can run the ball to set up the pass. We can stay on schedule, stay out of 3rd and long, keep that pass rush at bay, and we'll honestly and truly control the game from top to bottom. And it is a home game for us, not the Raiders. Just to be clear.
No, it is not. No,
whatever.
I defy you. Okay, and I'll take all your points. But your last sentence was incorrect. Listen. If that's
all you have to harp on.
Your last sentence was incorrect. I'm sorry.
Fine.
Your last sentence was incorrect.
That's fine. My point is the game is being played in SoFi Stadium. So
which is
whether it will be Raiders, whether there be Raiders fans in droves in that stadium, yes, it may be. They travel well. Them and the Cowboys and the Steelers, and sometimes even the Packers, they all travel well. There's a widely regarded franchise from a traveling standpoint, so they will travel well. I get that. But it's a home game from a location perspective.
Partner, it's not about traveling well. Okay, again, and I'll take all your points because they're valid points. It's going to be a close game if you run Eckler, and if we don't stop it, yada, yada, yada. All the points were well-founded. But if you're going to tell me that it's because the Raiders travel well, you are so full of shit. I got to say the word shit right now. Okay. Because
to be honest with you,
in San Diego, the last several years and last year and every other year, it is a Raiders effing home game. And if you don't even effing say that, you are so full of shit, you need to go and relieve yourself off a camera right now.
Okay, well, if that's your biggest argument that you guys have a home game,
argument. I'm just saying you're full of it.
If you blow past everything I said football wise, is going to win the game for us, and just harp on the fact that it's going to be more Raiders fans in the stadium, and give yourself a heart attack because you're worried about how many fans are going to build a building. I don't really care. You're going to lose.
The Chargers got it in the bag. According to you, the Chargers got it in the bag. I said it's going to be a very close game with two very closely matched defenses and offenses. And by the way, the last time I effing checked, J.C. Jackson, who is in that elite secondary, is still a question mark.
He might not play, and I have a good feeling it's not going to matter.
He might not play, but you think that he's going to go out there and trot out? I tell you what, he's going to take a Pepsid. Because he's like, oh, I got a guard Adams, and I got a bum whatever. Oh, it hurts, coach. No, I can't play this week because I don't want to look bad on film. You are so full of it.
I said on.
Yeah. You got burned so bad you got froze.
Record is saying that I don't even. I said on record that I don't think he should even play this game. I think he should ultimately play next game against the Chiefs. That's what I think he should do. So I'm not even concerned about him playing against the Raiders. I'm more concerned about his ultimate health and his actual ability to play throughout the season without actually.
I would be too.
I'm worried about him playing the other 16 games versus the one game against the Raiders. Again, we'll play the Raiders again. It's not a deal breaker if he doesn't play against the Raiders. And I don't think it'll matter because I think that Carr will have limited time to throw because of the deficiencies in the O-line. So the idea of getting the ball in droves, you likely bracket Devontae because you don't have a one-on-one receiver that can guard him. You will naturally bracket him, make Carr hold the ball, and he'll actually be sacked more and be laying on his back more in the game than he could be able to get the ball to Devontae in short order. So I'm not concerned.
If the Raiders play the quick opener that McDaniel has up his scheme, if it's quick, run, Stop the run. You guys got to prove you can stop the run. And as of right now, that is still unknown.
I don't think it matters. I think your O-line is terrible. It doesn't matter. If you can't block, it doesn't matter whether we can stop the run or not.
So now our O-line is terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
It is. It is. It's the worst in this division. Am I lying?
So I actually think the one thing that we have to all remember what largely occurred in preseason for most of the AFC West, aside from the Chiefs, actually, if we're going to be perfectly honest, is most of our teams sat either all of or vast majority of the starters, including offensive linemen, on a lot of our teams. And sometimes you saw a guy thrown in out of position to, get him like a game rep or two, that sort of thing. But a lot of the time we saw a good percentage of our starters just simply not play. So I think it'll be really interesting, and talk about being thrown into the fire, going up against a divisional rival for your game one. But what you're going to really find out is now that all your starters are on the field, that's offense and defense, where do they truly stack up? And the benefit or detriment, again, it can flip either way. You have all your guys healthy, because they didn't play in all those preseason games. So therefore they didn't have an opportunity to get hurt in those preseason games. And by and large, from what I've seen from both the Raiders and the Chargers, you've been able to avoid the injury bug, generally speaking, for the most part. So you are now going to be in an interesting spot to say, all of the negative talk about a scrambled offensive line for the Raiders and trying to figure out where guys are going to fit and if they can take steps from the previous year and improve or whatever the case may be. Similarly speaking, the Chargers had a pretty good offensive line, but can they hold up against elite level interior pass rush? Because last year in the final game, which is really the last sample size we saw, the Chargers' current offensive line, if we're being honest, struggled. Now, you had some injuries and there are some ding-ups and stuff like that. So, we're in a bit of a different, category and different scenario now. But we do need to be mindful of the fact that that interior rush of the Raiders, without Philon, by the way, and now he's not there now, but again, he was a big reason why the Raiders did so well the previous part of 21.
That's why I have to disagree with you because, well, first and foremost, from a personnel perspective, only two of our starters out of the five were on that line in the last game of the season. Fowler was hurt. We lost Odi Abouchier for the year in midseason, so we had a backup right guard and we had a backup right tackle in Storm Norton. The right tackle is different. We have a first-round draft pick in Zion Johnson at right guard now. Corey Linsley's there. My father's now healthy, Rashawn Slater. So to me, that's complete and utter overhaul of the O-line going into this game. So I don't think that having an interior pass rush for them, which I don't think they have. I think their edge rushers are good. I don't think their interior pass rush is good. Like you said, Fallon's not there going against backups. So I think that's a point that's not going to be a situation where you can honestly, truly say that that's going to be a negative for us. I think that's a strength for us this time around, not a negative.
Well, I think it'll be interesting, and this is why we're here. This is why we're all talking, and this is why we're trying to analyze kind of where things were at and that sort of thing. Frankly, the Broncos are in a similar situation where some of the guys we have back now have come back from injury. And we have questions, it sounds like the Chargers do as well, which is, what are they going to look like now that they're back?
I think that's the question for everybody.
And no, I'm not even saying that's unique to the Chargers. I'm saying the Broncos have the same questions too, right? And so, I mean, divisional rivals and divisional matchups are always interesting. You know each other so well, and you have more tape on your divisional rivals, really, in truth, than you do on any other team in the NFL. And that's what makes these games so interesting. And that's why so many fans from opposing teams, there seems to be more crossover within the division as well in terms of fans, just because you happen to know each other better. And that's what makes it so interesting. And that's what makes shows like this one so unique, to have all of us kind of gathering together and having, the four different teams all under one roof, despite the fact that, you curse each other out from time to time when you're about to play each other.
I only said the S word.
Well, for the record, Cap cursed. I didn't.
No,
Cap
I know.
Cursed, I didn't.
Yeah, I know.
And you know what? It's only because your last comment was such horsepucky that I had to say the S word.
Like I said, if that's the only thing you can harp on, I'm feeling good about myself.
Because it's wrong. It's blatantly friggin' wrong.
You can have 10,000 Raiders fans.
You had salient points about matchups, about how your team is good, this and that team, and what you had salient points, and I listened to them. I did, and I didn't say a word because they were salient, well-constructed points, right? And then you go, and by the way, it's a home game for us. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay? It's not.
You can argue with yourself on that one because it's played in SoFi Stadium in LA. It's not played in Las Vegas.
You know
whether you have a Raiders fans.
I knew we get one.
Jesus.
It's you.
Because you're talking out of that right now, talking about fans. Fans don't play the game.
No,
you can have 1,000 Raider fans in the building and you're still going to lose. That's the fact. That's a fact.
Okay.
I'm saying it. I'm putting it on as my.
Hold on, Coach. No, hold on. No, in fairness, you could lose with 1,000 fans of your team.
You're missing my point. My point was in not the fact that they're going. Is they guaranteed that they're going to win or lose?
No, I agree. That's my point.
Thank you, Alex. Say it again. The fact that the Raiders fans don't play the game.
You know what?
That's a fact.
Somebody that's been talking a lot of shit for the last 2 weeks about how your team is going to whoop our ass, and don't you say you haven't because I'm just getting ready for the Raiders.
I've said it. I'll double down on it.
A lot of freaking diarrhea out of your mouth, and I haven't said shit about it. But you've been it's like a freaking typewriter going off on overdrive. Your shit out of your mouth talking about how the Chargers were going to wipe the field. It's effing bullcrap.
You're going to finish fourth in the division while you're at it. You're going to finish fourth in the division. You're going to finish fourth in the division, brother. You're going to finish fourth in the division while you're at it. I'm going to double down on that. You're going to lose, and you're going to finish fourth in the division. Now, how about that?
We shall see. We shall see. Because I don't make bullshit comments about yay, nay, and otherwise, and you're talking about how you guys are going to be fitted for your friggin' Super Bowl rings right now when you have to at least have one.
I didn't say that. I didn't say we're going to beat y'all. I didn't say we were fitted for Super Bowl rings. I did not say that. When did I say that on this show? That we fitted? We're already fitted.
Not on this show, but you've said it in pregame to me, so don't you deny it as well.
I never said that we were fitted for Super Bowl rings. I never said that.
So, do you want the great thing about football games? Is that there is always a winner, except when there's a tie, I guess, in the NFL. But generally speaking, there's almost always a winner, and we will find out who comes out on top in the divisional game between the Chargers and the Raiders come Sunday night.
Can't wait.
So I think that's going to be.
I expect Coach to call into my show, one way or the other.
That's fine. That's fine.
Hey, that's cool. That's cool, right?
That's fine.
So moving on to the last of our divisional games and the second guest coming onto our show to give us the 3-point stance. We'd like to welcome the Seahawkers podcast, and we're going to go ahead and bring in the 3 things that the Seahawks need to do to beat the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football, which is of an epic reunion for Monday night. You know why they picked it. Here's the Seahawkers podcast. Thank you very much, Adam, for coming on.
Hey, Broncos fans, Adam here from the Seahawkers podcast. I think the longest running Seahawks podcast on the internet. So we've been here throughout the entire Russell Wilson era, and it's exciting to come and talk to you guys here when we go to face off against Russ for the first time. I think we have a pretty good feel for who he is and what he might bring to your team. And so here are 3 things that the Seahawks can do to ensure victory for themselves Monday night at Lumen Field. And I think number one, and this is first and foremost, is stopping Williams and Gordon. You guys have a monster of a backfield. They're great backs. You can't deny it. I'd love to, but you can't. And if we can stop your running game, that is going to be the entire key to our defense having any success at all. Because as much as Russ wants to fight it, he plays his best football when he has a good running game behind him. So stopping them is number one priority. Number two is being able to play two high safeties throughout this game. It's a complete necessity, because if we've learned anything as Seahawks fans is Russ can't play when you're playing a bunch of deep zone, whether that's 2 high, 3 high, 4 high, however you want to play it. It really makes him struggle. And so I look for the Seahawks to play a lot of 2 high safety, maybe rotating Ryan Neal up high with Quandre Diggs and bringing Adams down in the box to help with run support on defense. And number 3, it's the running game of our own. I mean, you guys poached our quarterback, so now all we can rely on is our running game. And we have to see Rashad Penny come back and be the back that he was last year. If he can be that, if he can duplicate it, and trust me, we here in the Pacific Northwest, we know it's a big if. But if he can't, this could be a really competitive game, and we may be able to give you guys an out.
Again, I want to thank the Seahawks podcast for jumping on, giving us their 3 points for the Denver Broncos versus Seattle Seahawks coming up on this Monday Night Football. It's going to be really, a super interesting game. A few things that I think a lot of people are not really factoring in. And by the way, after the rant between coach and captain, for those of you who are not joining us live, the chat is almost scrolling now with banter back and forth, which is hilarious from our perspective here on the other side of it all. But with regards to the Seahawks versus Denver Broncos, I think a lot of Denver fans are not paying close enough attention to the changes that have been made on the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. They have made massive changes on the offensive line. They looked far better than they have in years past on, the last 3 years, probably in the NFL. They've spent the time and the resources in the proper areas to try to bolster their team. I still think the Seahawks are about 2 years out from being truly competitive, and they need to obviously get a quarterback to, I think, replace Wilson in order to truly be competitive. But they're backfilling their team the right way. They've built up their offensive line better. They're starting to rebuild their defensive line a little bit better. And I do really think that in the next few years, you're going to start seeing them take those steps up the way that we saw them in years past. But I don't think that's the year, or this is the year this year. And I think that the Seahawks are going to struggle to stop our running game, because our offensive line is truly designed and built around the running game. And I think that's going to be a very difficult thing to stop. And the other thing that Russell Wilson does have going for him, while he struggles targeting the middle of the field, he does very well in deep ball throws. And I think we have some of the wide receivers, Jalen Virgil, Montrell Washington, and KJ Hamler, to really stretch that field. So, with regards to the Broncos, I think our strength this game is also what you guys were all talking about. Alex, I think you mentioned it first, but then Coach and Captain, you both mentioned it in your 2 takes there from your divisional game, is the Broncos did not play their starters at all. And I think that's both a strength and a weakness for the Broncos. One, there's rust that needs to come off, but 2, none of our opponents have seen the completed defensive line or the fully completed gelled starting offensive line come game day. And so because you don't have tape, as long as they have gelled and are properly prepared, which no one can say that our Broncos did not look properly prepared in all those preseason games. And that's a credit to the new coaching staff. And I think that we're going to come prepared for this coming game against the Seahawks. So as a result of that, I do believe the Broncos pulled this one out, but I think it's for different reasons than a lot of other Broncos fans are pulling out. I think it has to do with see, I re-referenced what we said earlier. You noticed that, did you?
Yeah. Come right back around.
Oh yeah, right back around. Yeah.
It was an inception.
Yeah,
right.
There you go. I'm glad you picked up on that. That was I thought it was going to be an airplane joke, but that's fantastic.
We caught it.
Yeah.
We caught it. Not literally,
Yeah,
but we caught it.
Even the old man, according to Coach, even the old man caught it. Yeah,
you're right.
Well, that just means I have to speak louder. That's all.
What?
So
I'm gonna get my friggin' cane next time. And I'm gonna knock it up against the screen.
Oh, that's awesome.
It would be. It would be awesome.
That's awesome.
Old man yelling at clouds.
Come here, you frigger!
Oh man!
Tell me you at least have a Raider sign that says "Get off my front lawn."
No.
Yeah, we gotta
get him one.
We gotta find that. We gotta find that.
Hey, you guys find it for me. I will place it in my yard.
Fantastic. So, what we've seen from the Broncos this preseason has actually been the exact opposite that I think we're going to see during the regular season, and I am interested to see what you guys think of it too. We saw better pass protection offensive line with our backup offensive lineman than we did a run blocking offensive line. What we saw last year was the exact opposite. We had a very good run blocking offensive line that was good at moving guys off the line and opening up run lanes, etc. But they did not pass pro very well. Captain, you have a pretty good idea within Broncos country. You have quite a number of Denver fans that you know. What are your thoughts on the Denver-Seattle game?
I think that it's again, it's going to be the premier game as far as what people want to see. They want to see Russell going back to Seattle, and I know that the Seattle fans are classy, unlike the people that says we have a classy fan base, because first you have to have fans to have a classy fan base. To Callahan there, but I think that the fact that Russell's going to be going back to Seattle, he's going to get a nice ovation because again, they do love him up there. It's gonna be a good game. I think that the Broncos will definitely take it by the fact that they have a much stronger team than what Seattle has, and that's one reason why Russell dipped out. He saw that that ship was sinking, and it was time for him to get out of there, get out of Dodge, and so he got out while the going was good.
No, I do think that's somewhat true. Although I think if you're going to look ahead a couple years, I actually think the real reason why Russell left was because he
wouldn't let him cook.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually what it is. And so my personal thoughts on it is that Russell Wilson is at a stage in his career where he is looking ahead to his legacy and how he's going to be viewed from the entirety of the NFL and from a Hall of Fame perspective. And I think what the challenge that he has right now is too many people throughout the fan base do not think that he was the reason why he won a Super Bowl. And I think that he is looking to be used more as a pocket quarterback and then to be seen as the reason why he's able to get and win another Super Bowl in his career. And I also believe that when you win a Super Bowl with the second team, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, in recent memory, that puts you in rare air statistically in the NFL, historically speaking. In recent history, recency bias, it's not an uncommon event. But when you start going back and look at the history, like the true history of the NFL, you're in rare air when you start doing stuff like that. And I think Russell Wilson is looking at things from a personal legacy perspective, as well as wanting to be looked at as one of the top quarterbacks of his generation. And he believes that moving to the Denver Broncos and putting players around him, even reworking his deal, maybe if he has to in order to get the right guys in here, would be likely something that he would be willing to do. Because I think he's now he's now playing a bit of a Tom Brady game where he's looking at his he's looking at his legacy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think he's, the minute they got him, I thought of the sort of the trajectory that went with Peyton Manning when he went to Denver. Kind of a small window to be successful, but pretty good chance to be successful, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
So Sharif actually just had a very interesting comment here. You're right, he has. In fact, you're not wrong at all.
Half of the elite QBs in the league right now haven't played in 10 years.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that when you look at how people view him optically from the outside in, that's not something that's on their radar. Now, should it be? Yes. But that's not what's on their radar. And it's very similar to what you heard as the narrative with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Is who is the reason why? Well, as it stands right now, Bill Belichick has not looked spectacular without Tom Brady. So when you look at the Tom Brady leaving and winning a Super Bowl, optically right now, Tom Brady elevated his status by leaving and then going on and winning with the Buccaneers, or fake Pirates, Captain. I'll correct myself for you. Okay. So that was a win that Tom Brady had versus, Bill Belichick as a result of him leaving. And I think Russell Wilson is looking to do exactly the same thing. I think it's warranted and deserved for someone like Russell Wilson. He seems like an absolute classy guy. He's done all the right things since he's been in Denver. He also has probably the corniest saying that I've ever heard come out. But I mean,
he's just a corny dude, man.
He is. That's just who he is.
Him like taking photos of the wide receivers, like he's a dad in his world. He's like,
look, that's just who he is, right? And that is totally okay. I would much rather have a guy who's got the dad jokes going than have someone who you're wondering if they're going to get into trouble off the field in the off season or something.
I think we said it last night on Sports Talk, and I'm going to bring it back up here. If you're making almost $50 million a year, you married to Sierra, you're playing one of the greatest sports in all of the land in football, franchise quarterback of a good franchise, you can be corny.
Oh yeah,
you can be corny all you want. Listen, listen, call me corny. If I get all that, if I can check all those boxes, call me corny all you want to do. I'll be corny. I'll walk around with a bag of corn chips every day for the rest of my life. And you call me corny all you want. If I can make $50 million and be married to Sierra and play football for a living, call me corny all you want.
Exactly.
Actually, he made a better choice than being married to female Skeletor that he who shall not be named of the fake Pirates is married to. So he did make a better career choice in that respect.
I think my favorite Russell Wilson career moment is when he got drafted, and then his then girlfriend thought she made the bag too, but she's like aggressively celebrating. And then he divorced her. It was Sierra.
That was gangster. I have to admit, he divorced her before he got his new contract.
Yeah,
that was the most gangster move of all. He's like, nope, she got to go.
So I do want to address this because this is actually a common comment that comes from the Denver Broncos that I've heard almost everywhere. So if you're talking about DK and Lockett, sure, they are proven commodities in the NFL. And I think they have unique skill sets. And I think they are certainly good. I don't necessarily think they're elite, although Metcalf is certainly flirting with that potential with some of the stuff he's been able to do, but he hasn't been able to do it consistently. And he also needs to prove that he can do it without a veteran quarterback and kind of rise up and elevate the quarterback that he's with and not necessarily have the quarterback that he's with elevate him. So I do think that that's something that Metcalf will have to prove this season, if we're going to be perfectly honest.
Well, I think some of it too is, were those guys good because of Russell, or were they good because
that's exactly what I meant, right?
That's a big question. That is a big question.
That's exactly what I meant.
I'll tell you right now, in fantasy, I'm like dying to get Cortland Sutton because I think Russell Wilson's going to make him, what DK and
drafted
Lockett
him.
kind of were.
I drafted him, so I'm looking for Cortland Sutton to have a good
I
game.
mean, because I think some of their success are sort of the impression people have of DK and more so DK than Lockett, but both of those guys being better weapons. They haven't had to catch a ball from anyone other than Russell Wilson. So I'm not convinced that plugging Geno Smith into that offense is going to make those guys as statistically successful as they've been in years past.
I don't think nobody does. I don't think anybody has that sentiment. Yeah, no.
And so,
No.
so to this comment here, if you look at the overall complement of the Denver Broncos offense and compare it to that of Seattle's, I just simply think that the Denver Broncos, from a skill position player perspective, are in a much better position for a guy like Russell Wilson, because those wide receivers are all primed and ready for a veteran quarterback to take them from here to here. And that is what they are missing. You've already seen Cortland Sutton do very well with mediocre quarterback play. You've already seen Tim Patrick make a name for himself in the NFL with mediocre quarterback play and have other teams start to say, okay, who is that guy? Why did we not know about him before? And why did Denver get him and not us? Right. And then we also have other guys like KJ Hamler. I also believe that Jerry Jeudy, while he's looked okay, but not great. I think that with a quarterback who's more accurate with the football, like a Russell Wilson, will elevate Jerry Jeudy's play, because that's the type of quarterback that Jerry Jeudy needs to have on the roster in order for him to succeed, especially at the NFL level. So I think that's another kind of raising all ships, right? Better quarterback play is going to raise those other wide receiver positions. And I think that a guy like Russell Wilson will help polish someone like Jerry Jeudy and force him to improve. And then we have Jalen Virgil and Montreal Washington, who have come in as one an undrafted free agent as a rookie and another one as a drafted rookie, that are both looking like polished route runners even at this point of their career.
Yeah.
So either way, I actually think that that looking ahead and seeing what we have on our team compared to that of Seattle's, I actually think that our position groups at the skill positions are better than what Seattle had.
Well, like Seattle podcast guy said, I mean, I think the running game is also going to really help. I mean, having Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon compared to Penny.
No, we have two of them.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
One, two.
I'm saying having those guys in your backfield compared to what he had last year, and
yes,
Penny and Chris Carson, who, I mean, he's retired now.
Yeah,
but,
retired
I mean,
now,
that guy, you breathed on him and he got hurt, even though he could squat like 800 pounds. But
that might be why he squats so much. His neck is jacked up now.
But I think that is kind of Russ, at least to some point of how he plays, his play style, he kind of relies on an effective running game to do play action and like PA boot stuff, to kind of open
Nothing
up.
Wrong with that.
No, I think that's
nope.
That's why when he went to Denver, I was like, damn, like that is the, they got the perfect dude to fit into how their roster was, already built.
Yeah, and I think that really all Denver needs to do now is assess some of the weaknesses on the offensive line and address some of the interior defensive line positions and linebacker spots. So I think the good news for the Broncos is we know what we have and we know what we don't have and we know what we need to address. And then it's just a matter of seeing who fits with the new system and who doesn't. And I think that we have more pieces on the offense that fit with the new system than fit with our old system. So I think you're going to have a good amount already there. I think we're going to need some tweaking in the offseason, like right tackle is a good example of that. But I think aside from that, it's focusing on specific elements of our team and then building the depth. Or as George Payton has referred to in some of the Denver Broncos videos, is you need to build out that team core those core guys that stick on your team for their second contract that come back on team-friendly deals because they fit your team, but they don't necessarily fit other teams, but they fill out exactly what you need. And I think the Broncos are starting to build that element of the roster. And when you solidify the quarterback position, you can start zoning in and targeting positions of need as opposed to taking flyers on guys that you're hoping fit.
This could be what's the contract situation in terms of years remaining for Sutton and Judy?
Sutton just signed last year, so he's got another either three or four.
Judy's got what, 1 or 2 years left?
Judy's got 2 years, I think, plus a fifth year.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess it'd be interesting to see if if one or either takes off and they get. I mean, I guess it'd more so be with Judy at this point, but he takes off and gets to a point where he is kind of a reliable weapon. If you see Denver do, what KC did and trade him when he's the most valuable for a plethora of picks to try to replenish the roster, but saving the cap. Because I really think if KC is successful, you're going to see a lot of these teams that have to pump a $50 million plus cap hit into a QB. You're going to see them do stuff like that because that's really the only way to do it outside of selling the farm like the Rams do to be, relevant. And so I think that'll be interesting to kind of keep in mind because I think more so Courtland Sutton, but that's because I took him in a few fantasy drafts. So
Patrick and Sutton were signed within months of each other.
Okay.
So DZ, I appreciate. Coach, I hope you don't mind disclosing this. I won. I promise you, it was random. Like I didn't even know where I won a contest on Coach Defense.
Oh, he told me. I smelled some collusion.
Yeah, and are you smelling the barbecue there in KC? Good for you.
About 3 hours south. But
yeah, but so I had a choice between Eric Saubert and Tim Patrick. I opted to go with the Tim Patrick jersey because I committed live on this show that was the next jersey I was going to get. And so the one thing
you still got to change for Saubert.
And so Saubert is my next jersey.
No, y'all got to bet. Remember, y'all got to bet. Y'all got to bet between if Saubert catches a touchdown, you go buy your jersey. Remember?
Yeah, like Saubert's my next jersey. Like that's what I'm saying. Like Saubert is my next jersey.
You're calling it. I like that. I see what you did there. I like that.
Saubert is my next jersey. And
okay.
No, but I really truly believe that he is the type of guy on our team that every NFL roster wants. He is reliable. He always shows up. He never gets hurt, and he always does his job. What more do you want? I just don't get it. What more do you want?
Some more catches,
some more production on the stat sheet.
Okay, so who's your second tight end?
The Chiefs?
Yeah.
Blake. Well, not right now, but Blake Bell.
Sorry, you had to think about it. Okay, we're done.
No, he's hurt.
Oh, that's even better.
Right now, Noah Gray. And then you got Jody Fordson, who I think is going to be a sleeper kind of dark horse because he's not a traditional tight end. And you've already seen that. I think he's caught three or four touchdowns in the preseason from Mahomes. So I think that's someone you're going to see. You're going to see something kind of a good contribution out of.
What you need to be careful with those hybrid tight ends, the guys that are not necessarily tight end standards. You see them in Waller, for example, who is not a traditional tight end. He's more of a tall, quick wide receiver at the tight end position. Is a lot of the times they were not used to taking that kind of abuse in the college level, and they can actually get really hurt really quick at the NFL level.
Well,
and you just need to be careful of that. And frankly, NFL safeties, I'm going to take Derwin James as a great example of that. He's a hard-hitting safety, covers really well, and does all the right things the right way. I mean, there's a few other safeties like Budda Baker and some other guys like that kind of are in a similar mold in terms of how they play. And then you have a few of the other real freak athletes at the linebacker position that just clobber guys. And those are the types of players that really take a guy like that and put them in their place. Yeah. And I think you have to be careful with that.
Well,
very
and also
rare
with Wilson, at least in the preseason, they didn't use him like, as an absolute they don't do a whole lot of like 2-3 tight end sets anyways. But you saw him use them a lot in the red zone. And I think that's kind of where they do that. You see them do, like the trick shovel passes to Kelsey or Blake Bell. But I think they're going to use Fortson as more of a deep, I guess deeper red zone route type of high point, catch it in the corner type of guy, just out of the tight end position. I don't see him using them. I don't see him going in 22 personnel and marching down the field with a guy like that at tight end, and they don't really do that anyways. But I do get what you're saying. And I mean, you see it with Waller and guys that kind of get banged up more as they're used more. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think they're going to use him like that.
Well, no, but your coach doesn't play that way anyway. But I do think what you're going to see from the Broncos is what was working well for us in preseason last year.
Yeah.
So we had the 2 flanking tight ends on certain offensive scheme sets. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see that this year as well. And when you get into 2 tight end sets for the Denver Broncos, you're going to have Alberto on one side and Saubert on the other. And then you will then... Pardon me?
I said I like Albert. I like him a lot.
Well, he's a good dude. And
that's because he's on his fantasy team. I see that glimmer in your eye.
He's not actually. No. I invested heavily in Kyle Pitts, man. Who else are you throw to there?
Well, I invested heavily in Dalton Schultz. I understand.
Yeah, well, I finished my last draft last night. I'm in 5 leagues, so
I'm only in 3. You got me beat.
I can't say no to people.
Right.
I had to dump 1 because I was like 6 is too much, but 5 I think I can do.
Okay.
So no, Andy Reid doesn't really play that style of football. Alberto is going to be a really interesting tight end for Russell Wilson. He's got a rare blend of size and speed. I don't know what it is that is keeping him out of the Eric Saubert league in terms of blocking.
He went to Mizzou. They don't block.
I just don't know what it is.
That's it. What it is. I mean, Mizzou puts a tight end out there, and they're rarely like, hand down on the line, and they are not blocking. So
yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know what it is, but Albert O has had some epic blocks. Like some of the best blocks last season were from Albert Okonebuam, and he nailed it. He killed it. And then on the very next play, he looked like a turnstile. And so it's really, really interesting how someone who has done so well in one play then kind of turns out and you kind of question why he's even at that position, the very next play. Whereas Eric Saubert seems to kind of just be that kind of level, that level. Yeah. And
with an outside zone concept or mindset, that I think will help just the tight ends in general and blocking, and people like Alberto who aren't as good at straight up blocking, because outside zones kind of just beat a man and set the edge. So I think in general that'll help him look better overall in blocking anyways.
Right. And so another thing that I think that the Seahawks are going to have to contend with is the depth in our tight end room. And I say that because
it's hot garbage anyways. So I said the Seahawks are just dog water anyways. I think I said hot garbage, but dog water sounds better. Defense is not good.
No,
I'm partial to hot garbage. Dumpster fire. I'm partial to those.
Fire, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, but I think when you look at the overall Denver Broncos tight end room, it's almost a bit of an embarrassment of riches. We have Eric Saubert, we have Albert O, we have Tomlinson, who's going to come back pretty soon, Andrew Beck, who's a tight end, fullback, pass catcher hybrid, and so you have all of these options, and then you have Dulcich, who's going to come back at some point in like week 5 or 6. And he's just, a nice to have. Like, you know what I mean?
He's kind of similar to Alberto, though, and just like a speedy pass catcher.
Athletic, yeah, very athletic.
Don't count on him to block for you.
No,
and I agree with that.
Tomlinson and Saubert, to kind of counterbalance the
right. Right, but that's why a guy like Eric Saubert and Tomlinson are so important. Is both of those guys can block, both of those guys can pass catch, and then I think when Dulcich comes back, I think he and Albert O are your pass catchers. And if I'm going to be kind of speaking well ahead of kind of my turn in terms of what's going to happen in the season, I think that puts Andrew Beck in kind of the odd man out role.
Yeah.
And I think that from a fullback perspective, I think Saubert and Tomlinson could play that role if we needed them to for the odd play. So, in my opinion, I think that Andrew Beck is the odd man out when it comes to that sort of thing. But I just think from a skill position perspective, the Broncos are in a pretty solid place. We have some known commodities, and with an upgrade at the quarterback position, I think that that's going to allow them to elevate their game and do some things where 2 tight end sets. I also wouldn't be surprised if we have 2 back sets where we have both Javonte perhaps and Gordon on the field at the same time as well, because I believe our offense is going to be a little bit more creative than it has been in years past. We've also seen some similar stuff to that in Green Bay as well. So it wouldn't shock me to see that type of play here from our current coaching staff. You also have to remember is that our coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball has had some pretty old school offensive minds that they've worked under. And I believe that that'll be an interesting one. Question to Richie and Alex.
I just answered it.
Who was the better offense between? That's an interesting one. I do think that's an interesting one. I think it comes down to pedigree at this point, and the fact that the offense is in the second or third year or fourth year, depending on which players you're going to kind of go down the line. So I think at this point, KC probably has the better offense. However, I think that KC is in a retool and reassess mode this year. And so I think that you're going to see our offenses be a lot closer than they have been in years past. And depending on how quickly KC can pivot based on who they have and what they want to try to be eventually, it's quite possible that by the end of the year, the Denver Broncos could be in a better position offensively. I'm not saying that that's a guarantee. I'm simply saying that we're both in transition. So the question is, which coaching staff and which GM has put the better player personnel on the field, and which one fits and which head coach or offensive coordinator or both can best utilize the players that are on the team. At this point, I'd have to give the nod to the experience, which is on the Kansas City Chiefs, but you always have kind of the dark horse that comes out, of the kind of the unknown. And you saw that with a guy like Sean McVay. You saw that with some other guys in the NFL. Nathaniel Hackett, you can't rule him out as being another one of those guys.
No.
You'd be remiss if you did so.
I know I pointed at myself the minute he typed it, but I agree with the points you just made. And they are both in transitions, like you said, but in different ways. And so the main reason I think kind of across the board offensively, I think all of the AFC West teams match up pretty evenly. There's a little wiggle room in between the lineups, but in terms of offensive weapons, I think every team across the board has a pretty good array of weapons. Some have obviously a little more than others. But the biggest reasons I would say KC, at least heading into the regular season, has the better offense is, like you said, the continuity with the coach and QB and not retooling the system or putting someone who has to run the system new into the program. And just the fact that, I think KC just has the best offensive line and has the most stable offensive line.
I agree with that. sure.
going
100%.
and you know it's hard to. I mean, the game's always controlled and pretty much won by the trenches, and you know I just think that that's sort of the deciding factor as to why they are better. Like I said, heading into the season, just because of the returning Reed and Mahomes, but also returning your offensive line that you know gave up the third fewest sacks in the league and passed the second most. So you know that they are tested and experienced.
So that's an interesting point. So that's actually where I was going with my previous comments.
Yeah,
is you're in transition, and I think that the issue that you have right now is you didn't go out and target a wide receiver, for example. In the draft is what I'm specifically referring to. You didn't go out and target a wide receiver as a UDFA or a free agent or whatever. Now, you brought in free agent wide receivers.
They did get Justin Ross, UDFA.
Right. But you're waiting for someone to establish themselves.
Yeah.
And so as a result, you're in a transitionary year. Can that wide receiver transition into the NFL and succeed? Yes or no? Who knows? We don't know yet. Neither do you. So then and Sky Moore is another one. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah. So,
they didn't get a first round wide receiver, but they got a second.
You're literally talking question marks at this point.
Yeah.
And when we're looking ahead and we're trying to figure out who's the best offense and we're having those discussions, I agree. Your offensive line is the most stable and is the most consistent and did very well last year. Now, I'm going to preface all that by saying that was under your old scheme, which was very pass heavy. So then the question is, can you sustain that level of success with the current offensive line that was geared around a pass happy offense in a offense where you're going to likely need to run the ball more? Yes or no? Neither of us know the answer to that question. We can surmise and say you're probably going to be okay because they're, seasoned veterans and they're probably going to be able to do their job. But you truly don't know because typically speaking, run-heavy teams often look for different types of offensive linemen. You often have an offensive lineman that's a little bit more geared towards pass catching versus run blocking. They're slightly different skill sets and require a little bit different style of player. So I think it's a valid question and a valid point, something that if you're going to be honest with yourself, generally speaking, you actually have to assess appropriately. And I'm not necessarily sure that the Chiefs are well suited for the style that they're going to be changing.
Well, I don't know if they're, I know I've sat on the show and preached they need to run the ball more, but, at the end of the day, that's not really how Andy Reid operates. And, it's not like they're changing their scheme in terms of Andy Reid, trying to drastically change the offense. They just don't have the same people involved in it. But, I think that it just the offensive mind of Andy Reid, he's going to find a way to make it work because he's always done that. Obviously been more successful in terms of postseason production and accolades in KC than Philly, but he's always been known as the offensive guru that kind of no matter what you do to make up his lineup, he's going to make it a productive offense, one way or the other. And so I think to that degree, you kind of have to give them the praise until they show it's not earned anymore.
Right. No, I think that's fair. So I want to just take this one comment here as we close out the show. And again, I want to thank everyone for joining us live. And for those of you who weren't able to join us live, do so next Wednesday. Trust me when I say I guarantee there's going to be some fiery takes that come up after the game. So there's been a few things in the chat. There's been a few things that come up in the chat. Coach has had to go to another show that he jumps in at 9 p.m. called NFL Nation Live. That's with Ref Guru, the Violator, who is another Raiders.
Cap. You said me, that's Cap, not me.
No, sorry, I meant Captain. Sorry,
yeah,
Captain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Captain is with the Violator, who is another Raiders super fan. Absolutely top class guys over there at NFL Nation Live, and NFL Ref Guru is a former NFL referee, and so he has some really interesting takes in terms of kind of what's going on and that sort of thing. But with regards to this comment here from Mike, I know you're a Raiders fan, so I do want to address this. I'm sure you recognize me from coming into Captain Jack's show. The short answer is no. When you're talking tight end combo, Waller has speed but can't block particularly well. And so when you need a blocking tight end, Waller's not it. And if you're struggling on the edges, which I suspect the Raiders at the very least are going to struggle at the right tackle position this year, even though you have a solid offensive-minded head coach now in McDaniels. The challenge is that Moreau has also struggled a little bit in some of his blocking sets and is, dare I say, very similar to Saubert, which I've said several times on Captain Jack's show, but I think Saubert's a little bit better. So I think that Albert O is not as accomplished a pass catcher as Waller, which I think is fair to say across the board. It's just a fact. But when you're looking at the totality of both players, Saubert is better than Moreau overall, in my opinion. I think he does a better job at all of the other facets at the tight end position.
You're biased.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I just had to throw that in.
I just had to throw that in. I'm just clowning.
No, I follow Moreau. I actually really like him. He's a great tight end. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just think that Saubert is a more polished, well-rounded tight end than Moreau because of some of the things that I've seen on the field. And Waller is a pure pass catching tight end and is not capable of blocking the same way that Albert O can. So as long as you're going to run them in what they are good at, then I think you can get production out of them. But the problem is that if you ever run into a point where you need to reposition them, like Waller to block or Moreau to block, then I think you're in a conundrum. I think you're in a difficult spot, because if you need to protect the edges of your offensive line and run with 12 personnel or 22 personnel, you can kind of use whatever language you'd like, which is flanking tight ends on either side of your tackles to help block because you're struggling against blocking the edge rushers from your opponent. Waller's not your guy. And Moreau is above average, but he's not as good as Saubert. And there's two elements to the tight end game, which is pass catching. Waller is better than all of them. I agree. But then there's the blocking element. And I believe that both Albert O and Saubert, when you look at the, tight end 1, tight end 2, are better than those that you have on the Raiders from the blocking perspective. So when I'm looking at the overall balance in terms of style of offense, I do believe that the Broncos have better tight ends overall to fit the current system that we're playing. So that's my take, and I'm happy for you to disagree. The great thing is Mike, I gave reasons as to why I disagree. You've just told me that you disagree. And so you can go ahead and find me on Twitter, and I'm happy to hear your reasons as to why you disagree. And you can leave comments down below.
Yeah, there you go.
as to why you disagree as well. My handle is right there. So, guys, that's going to do it for the show tonight. We'd like to thank you for joining us and coming into the Wild Wild West podcast here on this Wednesday evening. I really would like all of you to go ahead and leave comments down below for everything that you thought that I was wrong about, and tell me exactly why. Hit me up on Twitter. Leave trolling comments as much as you'd like. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And guys, until next week, where the West Side is the best side, this is, in fact, the Wild Wild West podcast. Peace.